And we're live?
There's so much going on right now.
Because I got the Biebs in my mind. Because, welcome to the weekly webcast. I was driving in the radio, and then the Bieber was on the radio. Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Justin Rose, weekly host here of your web chat. 12:30.
I was a fan of Justin Bieber.
You can't hate the guy.
Is he growing on you? A little bit?
The music's catchy. It's a toe tapper. Toe tapper Adam Strozynski from the Detroit Sports Podcast is with us as well, as he is most weeks. Welcome back. We missed you last week.
I know, man.
What the heck were you doing?
I got put on the work schedule for like the worst shift ever.
Yeah. Oh, I had to work. See where your priorities lie. Look,
it was not good, man. I wasn't happy about it.
Somebody who's done with me, supposedly, Max White, our digital producer. Max, are you done with me still?
Yep.
Why?
I'm done. You always pick on me. You always pick on me.
You always pick on the ones you love the most.
You always say, yeah, you know what? That's what they say. I'm starting to not believe it.
Mind you, a little backstory. 3 minutes into here, sitting there, a little conversation going on, all of a sudden, Max is done with Justin.
Yeah.
Instantly.
I didn't do anything.
It takes that little.
I didn't do anything wrong to you. Takes that little. Well, whatever, Max. No one knows what you look like because we still don't have a camera on your beautiful face yet. But
he's the voice of God.
We're working on that.
He is the voice of God. Anyways, here's how the show works. Let's get right into it because we don't want to waste your time and certainly don't want to waste our own time. We got about an hour to talk about all things Detroit sports related. We're going to hit on such topics today as the NCAA tournament Final Four is now set. Michigan State, should they be in the Final Four? Obviously, they're not, but we're going to discuss what this means or what the column from our own Rob Parker had to say about it. We're going to talk about the Red Wings and their embarrassing loss on Saturday to the Penguins, and we're going to talk about the Pistons as well because this team is looking more and more like a team that can not only get into the playoffs, but give a scare, potentially win a series. Not going to go that far yet, but we'll talk in all those things. We want you to get involved as well, so the easy thing to do here, tweet at me or at Max or at Adam. Adam, R-S-T-R-O-Z, Justin, or J Rose, WXYZ, or Max White, WXYZ. You can also comment right underneath the video player that you are currently viewing this wonderful webcast through. That will go right to Max. Max will then read them. Any topics, go for it. We're ready to hear from you. So let's dive right into it. I think we need to lead with the Final Four because that is pretty much the most prevalent thing on the minds of people right now because, look, 10 seeds in, only one number 1 seed in North Carolina. Those two will play. And then you have 2 seed Oklahoma, 2 seed Villanova. Not really much of a surprise on maybe that side of the bracket, besides Kansas not getting there. But
I think the fact that Villanova made it that far is a little bit of a surprise because you have to remember they're habitual losers when it comes to the tournament.
So is Kansas. So is Kansas, and that's why they're not there.
Yeah.
But
who wants at least there?
What do you guys think of the Final Four? I mean, does it have any sizzle to it? I think this is North Carolina's Final Four to lose. I mean, they're going to play a team that they have just destroyed every time they played them this year. And then they're going to play the winner of Villanova, Oklahoma. And I just think North Carolina's playing so good offensively right now. They're going to be really, really tough to beat.
If we hit the rewind button, go back about 3, maybe 4 weeks, you were on the North Carolina train.
I was.
Long before anybody else was. You said that they had shooters, they had defense, they basically played a complete game that scared you. That was the one team that if Michigan State made it, you did not want to see. And I think you're absolutely right now.
Yeah.
It's theirs to lose. Vegas has them favorite to win it all. Mm-hmm. I think the one team that can maybe give them a little bit of a run for their money would be Buddy Hield in Oklahoma. I think that's the one team that can kind of. Here's the thing. I still don't believe in Villanova, and Syracuse is a team that we can go back and forth and we can discuss if you'd like to. There's a good chance that they shouldn't have even been in this. They were lucky to make it there, especially if you look at all the sanctions that they received this year as the season kind of wore on. You know, their coach missed 9 games, and I guess the committee took that into account. But still, they didn't do well in their tournament. They didn't do well during the regular season. So the fact that they're there was kind of on a hope and a prayer, and they've got there, and they've made some noise.
I like a upset Cinderella story. And look, Michigan State fans, if anybody knows what it feels like to be a Syracuse fan right now, it's them. I mean, come on, how many times has Michigan State made a run to the Final Four when they really had no business being in that situation? Syracuse is just doing exactly what Michigan State has done and hung its hat on for the last, couple times they've gotten there. Look, Michigan State has always overachieved when they've been lower seeded teams. I think that when they've been the higher seeded teams is when they faltered. I mean, besides the year they won it all when they were a number 1 seed. But look, I compare it to what Kansas has done, and I think that and my buddies and I were talking about this as well. All right, stay with me here. You're Kansas. You've had, over the last 8 years, 4 number 1 seeds, 3 number 2 seeds, and a 3 seed, and you have 0 national championships. You were the overall number 1 seed this year. You don't even win your region, and you give up a late lead to Villanova. Are you more gut-wrenched because that happened to your team when you have been constantly put in a position to succeed? Or are you Michigan State and you had a bad game against a hot team, and that's the way the tournament hurt? I mean, I don't know. Like, Michigan State never led in that game. So for me, as a Michigan State alum, I'm going, well, they never won. They never led in the game. They didn't blow it. It's embarrassing, and it's gut-wrenching that they lost it. But there are other losses and other ways that you can lose that are much worse.
Look at Virginia's loss to Syracuse.
Bingo, up by 15 in the second half.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a little bit more gut-wrenching because you were all of, 5-10 minutes away from going to a Final Four, and next thing you know, your lead's totally evaporated. You're on the outside looking in, and Syracuse is sitting there basically cutting down the nets going on to another Final Four. And that was a team that you should have manhandled. Yeah. And you didn't.
Right.
So I think that's maybe a little bit more of a gut-wrenching loss. You're right. The Michigan State loss, I think, was just more unbelievable.
More shock. There was more shock to it. Like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah. Like, I mean, right out of the gate, too. It was like you turned it on. If you turned the game on late, it was like, wow, we're down 15 all of a sudden. What's going on? Is this bizarro land? And next thing you know, Michigan State's kind of getting ran out at the gym. I know for me personally, because I didn't get to talk about the loss with you last week, but for me personally, up until probably the final minute and a half of that game, I thought for sure Michigan State was going to come back and win that game. Right. And I totally believed it up until the very final minute or so. And then I was like, well, I guess there's not too much you can do here. I mean, they just came out flat and didn't really show up. Right. Not a whole lot you can do there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The Villanova pulling off that win as well as Virginia basically blowing that game. I think those are 2 more gut-wrenching losses because of what was on the line at that time.
Absolutely. I'm looking over at your bracket, and I see you have
I've got nothing
one
going
Final
on.
Four team in Oklahoma.
I have a whole lot of nothing going on there.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny because I have 2, Oklahoma and North Carolina, but neither of them are playing for a national championship.
Yeah. This is
so no, not good. Not good for bracket people this year. But
pretty brutal.
I mean, look, this is the great part about the tournament. If you're a Syracuse fan, did you see the pictures from the Twitterverse about all the people gathering at Syracuse's campus, like celebrating and like it was like I'm embarrassed I don't remember the apartment complex, Cedar Village in East Lansing. It's like all the people you could see, everyone was out there. Syracuse was just cheering. You know, they were all out there. That was, yeah. No, I like the story. I like the storylines. I'm sick of the ACC, but God, they win a lot. They certainly have won a lot. And
they put a lot of good teams in, man. I mean, honestly.
When you handicap this, I mean, I think I saw that North Carolina is opening up as an 8.5-point favorite over Syracuse already. So we'll see. I mean, look, if Syracuse could somehow find some offense, I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they're going to have enough. And your point about Buddy Hield and Oklahoma being the only team that could slow them down, we'll see. Because if they take away Buddy Hield, Oklahoma ain't got anything else.
Right.
So I think Villanova would be more of a better matchup for North Carolina. But if they can't stop Buddy Hield, then we'll see if North Carolina can do it. Oh, excuse me. Anything over there from the people?
We got a lot of stuff. Someone wants to see us in a cage match.
Me and you?
Vince McMahon said they want to see
Vince
us in a cage
McMahon?
match.
Is he paying?
Us or probably not. Richard said I stopped watching the tournament after U of M and MSU lost. George wants to know, is Kansas more disappointing than MSU? Quinn says, do you think MSU got screwed because they were not the number 1 Virginia proved to be busters?
No, because I think MSU, when it was all said and done, MSU had a very favorable track to the Final Four. They just had to get out of that first round, and I think once they got a little bit of momentum going, they were going to be fine. But they couldn't get out of their own way in that very first game, and they got ran out of the gym. So, no, this was something we talked about the day after the brackets and everything came out. We thought you should have initially been upset that they didn't get a number 1 seed, but once they got that number 2 seed, and you've seen the path that they had to go, I mean, honestly, they should be in the Final Four right now,
Absolutely.
and they should be competing for a national championship.
Right.
But they blew it that very first game. So, no, I don't think that they got screwed in any way. I think they screwed themselves.
Yeah, but I mean, you could, if you wanted to say that Middle Tennessee was underseeded as a 15 seed. You could. It doesn't matter. You got to beat the teams. Then you could say Syracuse was underseeded as a 10 seed. You could say you could go many different ways. You got to win games to get there. Syracuse has won the games they've needed to get to where they've gotten to. You can't really hate on them for that. So, look, Michigan State, I just tweeted out, are you more upset about the type of loss MSU had to Middle Tennessee or Kansas throwing away yet another high seed? I think Kansas is worse, but some Michigan State fans I got the crying Jordan on Sparty. My buddy Nate, he's got the crying Jordan in Sparty.
I see that.
And he says ours. He very, very simply, like, you know.
If you look at his Twitter account, it's nothing but Michigan State.
Yeah.
So.
He's definitely a homer, as you typically say with that. But anyways, the Final Four said, I think North Carolina is going to win it all unless somebody gives me a compelling argument as to why.
Seth might have a compelling argument as to why Villanova will win.
Yes, Seth. Please tell us.
I just want to win the...
He just wants to win the pool.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's not really compelling, though.
It's compelling. They could win for Seth.
They
They win for Seth.
When Villanova's sitting there in their pregame speech for the national championship,
Win it for
let's
Seth.
go win it for Seth.
For Seth. Seth, we love you, man. We love you, man. All right, we gotta move on. Any more topics or any more college basketball stuff that you guys want to throw in, Max? Well, of course, will get those to us, and we can get to them as soon as they come through to him. But let's talk about the Red Wings. I mean, I think that this is you were walking up the stairs.
Hold on, wait. Before we start talking about the Red Wings, on Saturday, did you get to go hang out with your buddy Sid the Kid?
I didn't. No, I was at the high school basketball finals in the Breslin Center.
Well, did you text him?
I didn't.
Did
No.
you tweet with him? For those of you who don't know, Justin loves Sidney Crosby.
Well,
I just think Sidney Crosby's a good
Justin-
dude.
They're boys. Like when he worked in Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh,
they were like this.
Look,
Thick as
the
thieves.
only reason we hate Sidney Crosby is because of the rivalry. I mean, I would love to have Sidney Crosby on our team.
Well, yeah,
I'm
he's
sure
a
we'd all be
great
best
player,
buddies.
but he's also a crybaby.
I don't think we can
But
I don't think we can hate on
Also,
Justin.
Justin loves Sid the Kid.
I'm
That's
done.
his boy.
I'm done with Justin, but I don't think we can hate on Justin for liking Sidney Crosby. Just saying.
Can we not be done? Can we not be done?
We'll
Look, Sidney
discuss it.
Crosby. I have a great story about Sidney Crosby because he's just a good guy.
Well.
But I don't want to tell that story right now. I want to talk about the Red Wings.
You sure you don't want to tell it?
Yeah, I don't want to tell it. I don't want to tell it. I don't feel like the people are gonna be warm to it because you've already kind of set me up to fail here.
For those of you who don't know either, every chance I get to rip on Justin about Sidney Crosby,
He does.
I take it.
He does. All right. So Sidney Crosby, he wasn't even like the key component of why
Not
the
at
Red
all.
Wings got spanked. Patrick
at
Hornquist
all.
was quite the thorn in the side of the Red Wings.
It's a feisty Swede, too.
7-2 embarrassing loss. A couple of the things that I took away from that game, beyond the worst loss of the season, the final score, that's the first time the Red Wings let up 7 goals. I mean, look, it's the new age NHL. Higher scoring happens, but 7 goals is just ridiculous in the NHL game. Look, Jeff Blashill had to call a timeout and basically point up at the scoreboard and yell at his team, talking about how embarrassing it was that they were getting beat in their own building by a team that shouldn't be beating them that badly, but that they were. I mean, I finally like to see a little bit of, because I feel like Jeff Blashill, while the players have, said he's a player's coach and like they respect him and they work hard for him, he also needs to like show a little bit of leadership in the fact of like, hey, I'm the coach. Listen to what I'm saying because you're obviously not.
Throw a damn chair across the locker room a little bit. Flip
Exactly.
a table over.
Flip a table. Let's
Yeah.
get angry.
Get
Break
angry.
a stick.
Something.
Start pointing at people. Call them
Yeah.
out. And then they got booed off the ice at the end of the game.
Yeah, which they deserved. They deserved
They
it.
did. And I am hoping and praying that I'm going to be at the game tonight. I'm hoping and praying I see response. Mm-hmm. Because that maybe that butt kicking is exactly what this team needs to finish these last 7 games and realize, okay, we need to make the playoffs. We need to get in and we need to start playing our best hockey. If you don't play a whole NHL season, 80 games, 82 games, and get to the point where you have 7 left and you're in the playoff hunt. Just to miss it and go, oh shucks, guys, we just missed it this year.
Especially if they end up tied in points and they miss the playoffs.
Right.
Here's
Exactly.
the thing, too. If they go on a little bit of a win streak, Honestly, they could be the 3rd seed in the Atlantic.
They're not
That's how close
they're
it is
not
right
gonna
now.
go on a win streak.
But what I'm saying is it's so bunched
if
up
they
right now.
do-
It's so bunched up
Well,
right now.
I think
that there's like 2 points, 3 points separate just about everybody in this whole entire thing.
I think
all
they-
they've got to do is just string a couple wins together, and it's like they can't get out of their own way right now.
I think they had a chance to do that. I don't think they have the chance anymore. They've run out of time because Boston is now 3 points ahead of them with 88, and then Tampa is
But
5
Boston's
points
been
ahead, or 6 points at
Boston's been
91.
piddling away their season down the stretch here. I think they've lost 4 or 5, or they've lost 4 out of their last 5.
Well, yeah, but the Wings needed.
And
the Wings.
I mean,
they played Saturday against Pittsburgh, and Boston played against Toronto. And Boston did what you're supposed to do against the worst team in the NHL and beat them handedly 3-1. Whereas when the Red Wings needed to step up, and that was a playoff type atmosphere on Saturday against the Penguins, where you needed a win. Because if they get the win, suddenly they're only 1 point behind 3rd place. They don't even have to worry about the wild card. Now you're 3 points behind. Boston is. You have a game against Boston left on the schedule. You have a game against the Flyers left on the schedule.
And those games right there, I think, are games that can totally sway this season. If they go and they lay eggs in both of those games, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Those are games that absolutely
but here's
have
the
to
thing.
win.
You can win the next 4 games against subpar competition.
And
you
you're
have
in.
Buffalo, Montreal, Minnesota, and Toronto.
Those are 4 games that you should all win.
If they don't win the next 4, then maybe they don't make the playoffs. They don't deserve.
They
to make
need
the
to go.
playoffs.
They need to win 3 games at least in those.
Because then you go into Boston and you go into the New York Rangers to end the season, and those are if you need them to go your way, you're
in Philly. Philly is it's the last home game of the season on next Wednesday.
Right, next
I mean,
Wednesday.
They need to win at least 3 games.
Here's a question.
Of the next 4, you said.
Here's a
Of the next
question.
4,
Here's a
yeah.
question I have for everybody. Who is the blame for this season, for the way that it's basically has panned out? Is it the brand new coach? Is it the players? Is it the guy who put it all together in GM Ken Holland? Because I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think you can make a great argument for every single one of those groups. And honestly, you could probably say all 3 if you really wanted to. Like you said, is Blashill in there getting them motivated, getting in their face, sitting there trying to spark this team, or is he just more, like you said, he's a player's coach, so maybe he takes more of a hands-off approach? The players, I think a lot of this falls at their feet. You know what you have to do as a player. You have to show up every single day and do what you've got to do to win a game. And honestly, on Saturday, they came out that first period, they looked okay, and then after that, it's like they took the rest of the game off. They just mailed it in. And then if you really want to, honestly, me personally, I believe a lot of this falls at the feet of Ken Holland. He has sabotaged this team with bad contracts. You look at the Jimmy Howard contract, that's horrible. The Franzen contract's haunting this team. He's made not really adequate signings in free agency, and some of his trades over the last couple years, I think, have done more to damage this team than to really help them. You've got this young talent pipeline that I think is a little bit jammed up right now, and you can't move any of those commodities. And you've got aging players with monster contracts that you can't do anything with. I mean, nobody wants Pavel Datsyuk with what's remaining on that 7-year contract that he signed a few years ago. Nobody wants Henrik Zetterberg with what's remaining on his contract. You can't do anything with those. And then you've got guys like a Nyquist, a Tatar, a Yurko, who are supposed to be the next crop, and they really haven't
They're
developed.
underachieving, to say the least.
We've got a ton of questions coming in on the Red Wings.
Okay, let me finish this thought, and we'll get to those questions immediately. But I honestly, I look at Ken Holland is certainly a piece of this, but the transition period, we knew this was going to be a transition when Mike Babcock left. I mean, Ken Holland even admitted as much. He's like, it's time to change it up a little bit. So they're struggling, but here's the thing, the bright side, if you will. Struggling in a transition year is meaning that they're teetering on making the playoffs.
Which they are.
Teetering on making the playoffs. So it's not like this team is bottomed out. It's not like they're Buffalo. It's not like they're Toronto is a much worse situation than the Red Wings are. I mean, you have to at least try to take that silver lining with you, that if this is the worst that it gets, that this team is tied for a wild card spot with 7 games to go, and that's the worst. I mean, you hope it gets better. You hope that Ken Holland does some things and moves some pieces and changes the look of this team. And that's probably what he'll do in the offseason. But if this is as bad as it gets, and we're talking about making the playoffs with 7 games to go, okay, that's not that bad.
Well, Red Wings fans are spoiled.
Absolutely.
Because
talking
it's
about a
been-
fan base that hasn't missed the playoffs in 25 4 seasons. They don't know what it's like for a team not to win.
Do you realize that the next team who's right behind them in longest NHL playoff streaks is Pittsburgh at 9? So it's basically Detroit and then everybody else.
Well,
Exactly.
I mean, they have the longest streak in all of the professional sports playoffs,
Right.
I believe.
But
right? San Antonio Spurs are like right close near them with like 19 straight.
Right,
seasons.
but if you look at in the NHL though, it's in the NHL. It's one of those things where it doesn't really matter where you kind of slot in as long as you get in. It's not like the NBA. The NBA, you want to be a top 4 seed. Otherwise, you might be cannon fodder for one of those teams. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think
Whereas the NHL, you get in as an 8th seed. We've seen it with the Kings are the most recent ones to have done it. So I always go back to them. You look at it with the Kings. They made it in on the very last day of the season a few years ago and went on to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen in the NHL. Do you think the Red Wings are the Red Wings' failures are maybe a product of some sort of their own success? Like the fact that they make you look at the Panthers who are at the top now, they've been able to build because they've sucked and they've built through the draft. Even the Blackhawks.
I think not being able to have those high picks, it does hinder you a little bit because there is a dramatic difference drafting in the top 3 of the NHL than in the bottom 3 of the NHL. And for the longest time, the Wings were somewhere in that bottom quarter of the NHL making picks. I mean, you look at a guy like Pavel Datsyuk, he was like the last pick in like the 7th round. You know, and they struck gold with that, and
Right.
they learned how to do it, and they've done it better than just about anybody else. But over the course of the long haul, you're right. We're now going into season number 25 doing this, and you're running low on reserves. Your top
Well,
echelon talent's not there. You've got a lot of mediocre talent.
You knew that over time that was what was going to happen when you kept trading away prospects and kept trading away, depleting the system, and that's where they find themselves. That's just the reality of the situation. No one complained
Right.
5 years ago.
Well,
no one complained.
When you're winning
in
when you're
2009,
winning
2010,
cups or you're competing
2008.
for cups, everything is great.
So it's easy to sit here and complain now and go, oh man, we made a lot of mistakes. We also won a Stanley Cup in
Right.
2008. So
I'll fire off these questions one by one.
'Kay.
Anthony wants to know, will the Red Wings fire their coach this season?
No.
Which they shouldn't. Fred says Sidney Crosby is a baby. And then
It's your boy.
I forget, someone else said, did you forget what he did to Nick Lidstrom in 2008?
no, I didn't forget about what he did. I'm just simply saying you guys need to just let it go. God, he's a great player.
Sidney
see how I
Crosby
stirred
is
the
a very
pot?
touchy
You
subject
see how I
in
stirred the
Detroit.
pot?
I know he is. I'm just you guys.
Christine, I'm reading what the people said here. I stuck up for you.
Yeah.
Christine says, I'm not a fan of Blashill and Ken Holland hasn't done enough. The Wings are a 6 to 8 seed every year and not cup contenders.
What, my voice getting a little scratchy?
I don't know. No.
Seth, I have a Coca-Cola.
Thanks.
Seth, I like
Coca-Cola.
how I show up
Thank
every
you,
week,
Seth.
and that beard looks fuller and fuller and fuller. That's exceptional.
Yeah.
I wish I could grow something like that.
Under the end of winter, though.
Mine looks like I shaved my hair off and just kind of glued it on. It doesn't come in real good.
All right. Doesn't like Ken Holland and Jeff Blashill.
Yeah.
Hasn't done enough. I mean, okay.
I don't think you can
think
judge
it's too-
I don't think you can judge Jeff Blashill.
Exactly.
on
It's
this
too early.
season.
It's way too early.
I mean, he won a cup in Grand Rapids, so
Well, and
He's a good
here,
coach.
you're going to find out the kind of the brass that Jeff Blashill has, or the pull that he has in the hockey community. He's losing his assistant coach
Yeah,
after
Tony
this year,
Granato's
Tony
gone.
Granato, who
But-
was with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he's a key reason why I believe that their power play is struggling.
that's what I was going to say.
Because
so he's their power
he is
play
their
guy.
special teams coach. That's the assistant's job. In Pittsburgh, when he was with Dan Bylsma, he was number 1 or number 2 in the power play. They were so good during the conference title run when they had it in 2012, I think it was, when I went on the road with them. They were so good, and then in the playoffs, it stopped
out.
working. And they went like 0 for 15 in 2 series and then lost to the Bruins in the conference finals.
Yeah, I think that was 2012.
2012 season. But that's his thing. So when Bylsma was fired and the Red Wings picked him up and he was under Babcock, I go, ooh, this could really help because he could get this special teams unit working. It ain't. Their special teams is, I think it's 20th ranked.
They're
Their
in
penalty
It's near the bottom.
Their power play is 18th, and they're 20th overall in the penalty.
But
count.
that's only because their power play has been successful in the last 4 to 5 games.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see them 4 or 5 games. I bet you they were probably close to
24.
24.
Probably
26,
24,
yeah.
25, yeah, because they had just not been good with that. So Granato is going to be moving on. He's going to be the head coach at Wisconsin. I think that's a good move for him.
That's a great move for
Never
him.
been a head coach
Yeah.
before. That'll get him some head coaching
His
experience.
alumni, or
And-
yes,
yeah,
he's
exactly.
an
So
alumni.
And I think it's good for the Red Wings as well.
Absolutely.
You get some new talent in here. You get somebody else with a different voice, a different perspective. Kind of break it up a little bit because Tony Granato was a holdover from last season.
I don't think they're going to bring anyone in. I think they'll slide Chelios.
That's possible.
To the number one.
But again, somebody else with a different perspective, a different voice, somebody else. It's somebody new, a fresh take on things.
More Red Wings questions. Maxine. No, it's not me pretending to be somebody else with a different name, just so you guys are wondering. Howard and Mrazek both stink right now. Howard tonight against Buffalo.
It's not their fault completely, exclusively. Yes, they're not that great. They're not. Neither of them are playing playoff-worthy, carry-a-team-style hockey at this point in time, but that's the nice thing about 7 games left. You don't want them to be playing out of their minds hockey right now because that eventually subsides.
I think if Howard wins tonight, you stick with Howard.
I think so too. I think Mrazek's been the one that's been struggling more.
When Mrazek was sick, I think the Wings went 2-1 or 3-1 in 4 games with Howard at the helm. And this is the thing I brought up earlier a couple weeks ago. Is like a couple weeks ago, Mrazek was playing the most games he's ever played in a season.
Right.
And he's continued to play. I mean, that guy, he's young, so he's not used to playing all these games. And they're playing in super competitive hockey where they can't just mail it in because they're in the playoffs. So this guy's been having to stand on his toes. I mean, you think you stick with the hot hand here if he's the hot hand.
The bigger issue with this team, it's not so much the goaltending, because if the goaltending can get hot, it will win you a playoff series. And you're right, they haven't been playing very well as of late. But look a little bit closer. Those guys are getting hung out to dry time in and time out all the time. I can't tell you how many times I watch a game and Nick Cronwall, who's supposed to be your very best defenseman, is sitting there getting beat, leading to 2-on-1s. And honestly, at the skill level that they're going against, 2-on-1s, it's damn near a for sure goal. You know, I mean, you can't say much more than the guy goes there, makes the initial save, and then it's up to that defense to clear that rebound.
I've seen
defense stands around in front of the net.
Second or third goal from the Penguins game, Zetterberg was just late getting back, and a rebound bounced off
all the time,
and bang in the back door, and Zetterberg just turned and skated back to the bench. Like, oh, that was my guy.
That's it. Yeah.
Like the goaltenders are getting.
Defensively, they're so
lax,
and
giving
they're
up so
brutal.
many shots. How many shots? I mean, I wish there was a stat for this. I'm sure there is if we looked it up. Max, maybe I'll put you on this. Find out how many shots the Red Wings have given up. Like how many shots on the Wings that they've had on them, and how many shots they've taken themselves. I feel like every time I look up at Fox Sports Detroit's shot ticker, it's like 30 to 15, 30 to 20. Like at the end of the game, it's always double the shots for the other team. So why aren't they getting more shots on goal? And secondly, why aren't they in a position to stop the shots that are being taken on them? I mean, you're asking so much of your goaltenders to stop 30, 35 shots a game. I mean, when you hear that stat, like, oh, Henrik Lundqvist stopped 35 shots in a 2-0 win, you're going, holy smokes, that's a ton of shots.
Right.
But the Red Wings are giving up 30 to 35 shots a game. So you're going to lose a lot of those games when you're giving up that many shots.
I think it was that Flyers game about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, where the first period ended and it was like an 11 or 12 to 1 ratio for shots on net. I mean, the Wings were totally outplayed that entire period and were just dominated. And this happens almost every game. Almost every game. And back to what I was saying, Nick Cronwall's supposed to be your number 1 defenseman. He's lost a step. The guy can't keep up right now. And you can say he's injured. This was happening in the very beginning of the season. The guy looks slow. If you go after him, your next best defenseman, probably Dan DeKeyser, same deal. These guys, they're not fast enough on the blue line. And I don't care if you want to go, oh, big enough on the blue line. No, they're not fast enough on the blue line. They turn the puck over often, and it turns into 2-on-1s and odd man rushes on your goaltender. And every goaltender will tell you, it's going to lead to a breakdown. You're going to give up goals when there's that many odd man rushes.
Right.
And seriously, watch tonight's game. Watch how many times Nick Cronwall's out there, Dan DeKeyser's out there, and they're just coming in and they're just getting peppered with shots because of an odd man rush because there was a turnover either in the neutral zone or at the blue line.
Yeah, some of these guys are forcing it, and I think that's a little bit of the immaturity and the youth on this team as well. The fact of the matter is not everybody has as much experience as Henrik Zetterberg and Pavel Datsyuk do, and those two are even culprits of turning the puck over in the neutral zone.
Well, they're slower on the ice than they used to be.
Yeah, but you're going to have that. The Wings should maybe get a boost. At least you would think that they might get a boost. Gordie Howe is going to be attending the game tonight. I mean, this is the same Gordie Howe who had, basically his eulogies written for him from newspapers, and the family had one already prepared because of the way his stroke took him to the brink of death, and now he's back, and he's going to be at the game tonight. I think that if they even apparently he's going to be in the locker room before the game. If those players can't get
up to that
up
guy,
for Gordie Howe,
right,
who's been everything to this franchise and is fought death. And if they come out flat tonight, I'm just going to go, okay, this team is absolutely done.
Yeah,
Done.
if you can't respond after the way they played Saturday,
And you gotta have that
especially
response
against the
on it, too.
Sabres, then that's it. As to your shot question, Red Wings have allowed 2,500 and no wait, hold on, I just had it. 2,000.
Hang on, let's do the math here.
It's only 20 shots difference. 2,252 shots allowed, 2,232.
And how many games have they played so far?
Yeah, I think
75. That's 30 shots a game. They're averaging giving up 30 shots a game.
You remember the Red Wings when they were winning Stanley Cups? They'd give up roughly
12 to
15.
15?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
the defense has sucked,
15 was a
defense has
lot.
sucked for a while.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing in the offseason, if the Red Wings really want to get back into contention, is you've got to find guys like Chris Letang. You've got to find better defensemen. Look, you can have I think everybody knows that they're sick and tired of Jonathan Ericsson back at the blue line. I think everybody knows that they're done with
Brendan Smith
at the blue
Which
line.
he is not playing today.
He's not playing
I think
today.
Alexei Marchenko.
Well, you're supposed to be your young up-and-comer. You got to go out and get some veteran defensemen. And they missed on a couple of really key guys that they could have probably gotten over the past couple of years in free agency and whatnot. Zach Parise would have been an unbelievable addition back there.
I think the new arena is going to help this team out a lot.
Absolutely. Players are going to want to come and play in that type of an
And
environment.
no
It is
Babcock
hockey
either.
town.
I think I've heard a lot of people don't like playing for Babcock.
But that's what happened.
But yeah,
that brings me back to my point about the transition.
Yes.
If the transition is here and this is the worst of it, when we're talking about a team that needs 5 to 6 points to make the playoffs in the last 7 games, that's not that bad. I mean, it's frustrating because you expect, but you've come to expect this from this franchise. But at the same time, you got to take a deep breath, take a step back from the situation and look at it and go, okay, this is the worst that it's going to get. I mean, we're not talking about the Dead Wings. We're not talking about when they can't win.
When they were giving cars away for you to show up.
Basically, we're talking about a franchise that is it's in its transition time. Let's not jump down their throats. Yeah, they're not doing the things that you want them to do, and they're not playing championship caliber hockey at this moment, but you knew they weren't going to do it anyway. So the fact that you're complaining that they're not doing it is already like, well, wait a second. You already expected them not to do it, and now that they're not doing what you didn't expect them to do, how can you be mad?
Going back to the thing about not wanting to play for Babcock, just look at Mike Green. Mike Green was a guy that the Wings wanted here a couple years ago.
Yep.
And he wouldn't come here because he didn't want to play for Babcock. Babcock moves on. Next thing you know, Mike Green's here. Granted, now you've got him on the downside of his career, and it really hasn't worked out the way I think most Red Wing fans would have hoped. But Mike Green was one of those guys who basically absolutely refused to play for Mike Babcock and wouldn't come here. Next thing you know, Babcock's not here. A little bit of an influx of some talent, or what was talent.
A couple more questions before we move on. Hank wants to know if they miss the playoffs, do you think fans will be angry or appreciate the 24 years?
Well, they'll be angry at first, but after a couple of months of the offseason, they'll probably look back and appreciate.
Yeah, that's one of those things when you look back in retrospect, you're just like, wow, they did that. They were awesome for such a long period of time.
I don't believe this person's real name, but Yevgeny.
Okay.
The Red Wings defense is as soft as Sidney Crosby. Even Adam could bust through and score on them.
That's right, and I can't score goals. I can't score goals.
Harry wants to know if it's time to fire Ken Holland. It may be time for new management at the top.
Yeah, how do you feel about that? Do you think Ken Holland gets another year, or do you think they should maybe start looking to transition away from Ken Holland?
I don't look.
I know everybody, the go-to, if Jim Nill was here, you could say, yes, let's move on from Ken Holland. You can fall right back to Jim Nill.
I think
if Steve Yzerman was here, you could fall back to Steve Yzerman. You had his replacements in the Wings. But those guys have gone on to do great things. I mean, you look at Dallas, gone on to Dallas, done great things. Gone on to Tampa, has done really good things in Tampa. Both those guys have moved on.
I bet you Yzerman would come back, leave the Tampa job for Detroit.
I don't know about that. I think he's got a very good situation in Tampa right now.
But just from all the stuff that came out this year about Tampa between what's that kid's name? Jonathan
Drouin
Drouin and Stamkos not wanting to be there allegedly, but then saying he wants to be there.
But a lot of that I think has to do more with the coach than with Steve
Yeah,
Yzerman.
but still, it's that, he played his whole career in Detroit. But I think the question can be asked about is it time to move on from Ken Holland? I mean, I think it's a fair question that can be asked.
I think it's a legit question.
Here's okay. So you guys have already made my point for me. So you move on. Who's next? What are you feeling?
Oh, no, I'm not saying it should happen.
Because the thing is fans who clamor for change always go, we want change!
But then they're upset
and then the
when
change came.
Yeah.
It's from the South Park episode where Obama and we want change, and then all of a sudden they're zombies wandering around.
Right.
We got change, and we don't know what to do with it because it's not successful change. That's what you're asking for if you're asking for Ken Holland. Hey, Ken, you've done a really nice job for us. You won us plenty of Stanley Cups, and just 24 years of success continued under your regime. Bye.
Right.
Who's going to come in and be better than that?
And I understand. I
You're
understand
setting the
exactly
standard
what you're saying.
so high.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but you have to look. I think it's a fair question to ask. I think at this point, if you look at what they've done the last 5 seasons, that's a fair question to ask. And like I said, it'd be totally different if you had Jim Nill or Steve Yzerman here because you have the replacement. I don't think you have the replacement right now, but I think it's a fair question to look at.
All right, Max.
You're giggling. What's going on here?
I have to apologize to Yevgeny because he says that is his real name. He came here from Russia in 2002. I thought because he mentioned Sidney Crosby, he was trying to make a play on Evgeny Malkin's name by calling him Yevgeny. But I apologize to Yevgeny.
Good job, Max. Offending our wonderful viewers.
Don Cherry said, I hate Russians too, like Max. I don't hate Russians. I apologize. Wally says, is Joe Louis a dump? I've never been there, but my friends say it smells funny. Will you miss the JLA?
No.
Joe Louis is a dump.
It is a dump.
I love it though.
I do too.
And I'm gonna
miss it.
I'm gonna miss it, but I'm so excited for this new arena.
Here's the deal. I will not miss peeing in a bathtub because that's basically what you pee in.
I will also
there.
not
that's
miss
really
having
awkward.
to struggle. I'm like an offensive lineman that people don't see me, but it's a good way to describe me. I'm an offensive lineman.
6'4"?
He's strong.
About 6'3".
6'3", 6'4", strong like bull.
Going down those stairs, my tickets I have are in the upper level, like row 18 or 19. Going down those stairs after a few too many beers.
I was going to say,
is
did you
just
get a little sauce?
The scariest thing in the world.
You can stumble and die.
For my purposes, that building was
the
not
the
built.
press box.
There is no press
the
box.
press box.
I
is
walk
horrible.
up through the fans to go up to my seat.
The press box is
and there's no
atrocious.
elevator access. There's no. I mean, it's a one tiny row at the top of the bowl.
And you kind of like squeeze behind the chairs.
Squeeze behind
of the
chairs.
people.
It's not a good place to catch a game. The nostalgia of the arena being old. I got a chance to go to the Nassau Coliseum during the last year the Islanders played there. And it was the same type of thing. The media was sitting way up at the top of this like concrete
Now, was
block.
that a complete dump? Because
Absolutely.
that looked like
Horrible,
I think it should have been set on
horrible,
fire about 5 years
horrible,
before they
horrible
went
dump.
to demolish it.
But there's something about seeing a sign when you're walking through the tunnel saying like asbestos area, like use caution. Like there's like the same thing with the Red Wings.
There's cancer in the walls. It might kill you.
There's signs. There's the I like that they've painted like their championship teams on the brick in the lower doldrums. Like that stuff is like kind of cool, and that's that part of that you'll miss. That part of the Joe. But I mean, you talk about the upgrades. If you've been in the Olympia Club, you're like, oh cool, like VIP access. But you're like, oh cool, like
There's
this
nothing
reminds me
there.
of my grandma's basement.
Yes,
like,
that's exactly what it's like.
The way the Joe
not
is designed
a-
is
It's exactly what it's like.
It's your grandma's basement. Literally, you go down there, you find a pot of candy, and you go, oh, butterscotch. Like, oh,
it's got the low lighting like a grandma's basement would have in the Olympia Club, like the dimmer lights, the yellow lights.
But the experience that you will likely have at this new Red Wings arena
If everything
is going to be
if everything
sick.
happens the way it's supposed to with bars in the area, and
Mm-hmm.
we're, like that was the thing. I've never been to Bridgestone in Nashville, but I've never been inside, but I've been around it during a concert and in a game. And there's just they have this huge outdoor area where they set up alcohol stands, and you can go and you can get a drink and hang outside, and it's right there on Broadway in Nashville, surrounded by. So you can go to a bar and grab a delicious meal, and then walk right across the street and go to a game. which you can't do at Joe
And that's
Louis.
what this whole thing, that's why it also adds to the intrigue and the excitement of having a new arena in the downtown. I mean, remember when Ford Field opened, everyone was excited about that. Remember when Comerica Park was open, everyone was still, I mean, that was, what, 1999 at this point? So we're talking about 20 years almost that you know, that Detroit is a different place downtown than it was 20 years ago. And it certainly will be a different place 20 years from now when this new Red Wings arena is up and running.
You guys might be able to fill me in a little bit more, but with the new arena and the way that they're kind of building, with the whole layout of how this new arena and just the plot of land, what it's going to take up, I know that it's going to be on the other side of 75 right there, right?
You know all the Tigers parking lots?
Yes.
So that's where it is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is there somehow that it's going to be connected to Comerica? Because I feel like if you're going to build this that close, it has to be connected to Comerica. That way you've got like a year-round thing going on between the two, where you can just kind of bounce back and forth. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you were planning this out and you're doing a good job with it, you would find a way to connect the two, especially since they're both part of Illich Holdings, where you can just make this massive area where you've got baseball on one side, you've got hockey on the other, and basically it's 12 months a year. It's just back and forth.
They're kitty corner. So like you have I-75 is the only thing separating them.
Right.
So it's on the same side as the Fox, and then it's kitty corner to that. As for a way that they would connect them, I mean, I think that's the only way. You know, they're within walking distance. And I don't think they'll build like this giant tunnel thing like they have at the Joe that connects the parking structure to the Joe. I think this is.
I know it's 75 there makes it a little bit difficult, but like I feel like to utilize where Comerica is and to utilize where this is going to be put and to make it, because once hockey goes away, does this now kind of shut down for the next 3 or 4 months?
That's the
or
thing.
are you going to have something there that's going to draw, not just concerts, not just Disney on Ice, not just random things? Is there going to be something else that draws? Because the Tigers go basically into at least September. You know what I'm saying? So basically, as one's kind of dying off, the other's picking up, and then when the other's dying off, the other's picking up, and it just kind of keeps that area vibrant.
I believe the way that
sports.
they're building this is like, if you look, it's called the Detroit Events Center right now, because what it's going to be, and Seth, maybe you can jump in on this, I'm not sure, but it's going to be bars, restaurants, apartments, and then the arena. And so if you go to a Tigers game, where do you go beforehand, right? You have Hockey Town, and that's kind of basically it.
Right.
You go to a place in Greektown or Chelly's, But now if they're planning on putting, 5, 6 different restaurants, a few bars in there, you can go hang out there before the game, and then it's a 5-minute walk to Comerica, instead of just going to Hockey Town or going to Chelly's and then walking to the game. But I think most of the people that go to the games kind of just go down there and go to the games and then go home.
A lot of
there's
people
not
do.
much else to do
Right,
in
right.
that area.
And
But I
it's-
think this may help.
This will absolutely change the way that you go to downtown Detroit for sporting events. I'm stoked. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a while, especially for the Red Wings. It's going to be something new. And the team that's probably going to scratch their heads at the end of this, probably in 3-4 years, going, we should probably be down there, is the team we're going to talk about next.
Well,
The Detroit Pistons.
Sorry, one more thing. Not just with the Red Wings, but there's going to be concerts, and then because it's a new arena, you're going to get new things.
Well, you
So
got the NCAA
that's what I was
tournament
gonna
coming
say.
for
You
the
have
first
NCAA
round in
tournament.
2018.
You'll probably get a Frozen 4 here again soon
Probably.
with that new arena.
Yep.
I'm a wrestling fan, so you'll have all the
Wrestling!
WWE
You'll have
shows
those.
there, and you'll get pay-per-views out of it now. And
My whole thing was something to keep it a little bit more sustained, because like I was saying, the way baseball season runs, it basically gets hot and heavy right after hockey season, and then just as baseball season's dying down, hockey season's getting hot. So you always have something to kind of, just as one's going down, the other's picking it up. And yeah, you're right. You'll have those events and you'll have all these one-off things that are going to go on there. But do you have something that can sustain it long-term? So if there was a way to bridge that gap, connect it a little bit, or expand out the property. I know Illich owns everything right there, but
that will. I mean, look, you got the Lions. That will be a place that people go to party before the Lions games and walk over. They're going to Eastern Market right now to tailgate.
Or the
Instead of
Elwood.
going to Eastern Market, or they'll take it's the Q line.
this is more
no,
of
I'd say
a.
the Elwood. There's the Elwood.
Oh,
bar.
yeah, the Elwood
You'll hang
bar,
out
yeah,
there.
This is
yeah.
more of a bigger issue of the way Detroit was planned. It's all a bunch of, it's like little islands. You have to go island hopping to get around downtown. Like you've got basically your Greek island, you've got Mexican Island down a little ways.
Oh,
You got, you know what I'm saying?
You were actually calling it Greek Island.
No. But that's kind of what it is. You got little
Yeah.
hubs. Is kind of how it's how you hang out downtown. You got your basically your stadium district, which is Ford Field and Comerica, and then you've got your Greek district. If you go down a little ways, take 75 down a little bit, you've got your Mexican district, and it's just kind of the way it works. It's really weird the way it's kind of set up like that, and it makes it hard to get around, especially if you're not from here. Like you're somebody who's coming in for the Final Four or something else. You're like, oh, well, how do I get to here? Well, you're going to want to take a car because you don't want to walk through that area. Do you know what I'm saying? That's kind of how it's set up, whereas you go to other downtowns, well, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take Main Street down and then hook a right onto 12th, and then from 12th, hook a left real quick onto Adams, and you're right there. Do you know what I'm saying? You walk it, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Here, you're going to want to take a cab, an Uber, if you've got
I
your
don't
own
think
car.
it's that far.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you, but like
just a way to connect it is
it's cleaning up. It's
Yeah.
cleaning up
I
so much
walk
more.
throughout
I'm kind of,
downtown.
I'm not worried about that as much as I was maybe 10 years ago. But we'll see. Again, when we see the finalized product of the new district being everything as it is, we'll start to see.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be
great.
cool.
All
I'm
right, we got
excited for
about
it.
15 minutes left of the webcast. We got to talk about the Pistons because out of all the doom and gloom we've talked about for 45 minutes, this is the team that I think is the bright spot right now. And if you're not on the bandwagon, get on the bandwagon.
They've got the best shot to make the playoffs.
You got tickets available for Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook coming to town. That should be a great game and a good barometer of how good this Pistons team is moving towards the playoffs. $26 right now. You can get tickets online. I'm seeing on the ESPN website that you can do that for $26. But look, they lost to Atlanta. They had a 5-game winning streak snapped. But they did what they needed to do on the first half of this 9-game homestand. They beat Sacramento, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Orlando, and Charlotte, and lost to Atlanta twice during that homestand. So just don't play Atlanta in the playoffs. I
Right,
guess.
you'll be okay.
But close games. I mean, not too bad. 4-point loss and then a about 16-point loss. But now you're playing against teams that are already in the playoffs or are trying to get into the playoffs. Oklahoma City, Dallas, Chicago, Miami, Orlando's out, Washington's trying to get in, Miami again, and then Cleveland. So you have a real opportunity. Where are you with this Pistons team? I mean, I think that they need to make the playoffs not only for this season, because I think that they, especially if they draw the Cavs, I think they can beat the Cavs. I do.
I do too.
I think there's a lot of bad juju going on down in Cleveland right now with LeBron acting the way that he's acting. And I can see a motivated Pistons team who's already beat the Cavs a bunch this year.
Numerous times.
Losing or beating
and
them.
handily.
Beating them, stealing one on the first 2 games, coming back to the Palace, winning 2, and then all of a sudden it's 3-1 Pistons. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if the Pistons beat the Cavs? It'd be huge, even if they lose in the second round to an Atlanta or to a Toronto. Get back on the map nationally. Become a team that is feared and revered as a team that can contend for something. Because all I hear right now is the announcers, the national scene being like, well, the Pistons are, they're making the right moves. They're setting themselves up for the future. Like small golf claps around the world. How about like a big hey, we're here. This team is going to contend for years because that's so young. Their average age is like 23.
You know what's interesting? Both topics that you just brought up were main points that me and my stepdad talked about yesterday over Easter dinner. I think this team, if you're like you said, you're not on their bandwagon, you need to just pay attention, watch what's going on. The move to pick up Tobias Harris was huge, absolutely huge. This team's going to be good for the next couple years. I can see them being a huge. I think they're going to contend for a playoff spot now. I think they've got the best shot out of the 2 teams, whether it be Detroit or the Pistons, to make the playoffs. I think they're more of a favorite to get in than actually the Wings are at this point.
Yeah.
But they're going to be good. If they match up against Cleveland, they do have the magic elixir to beat the Cavs. And like you said, I have no idea what LeBron James is doing. He's out there pouting again. It's what he seems to do at this time of year, where he just sits there and sulks around and then blames everybody else because he can't get a shot off. And it's Kevin Love's fault, and it's Kyrie Irving's fault, and he's not playing a lick of defense. So I think the Pistons have a great shot to sit there and could possibly, if they do get in as the 8th seed, to bust the Cavs. But this team is going to be good, not this year. They're going to be good next year, the year after that, the year after that.
Yeah.
They've got something building. They're going to be a very solid team. And they're going to be a difficult out for somebody when they do get into the playoffs because I firmly believe that they're in.
Yeah, and if they get in, right now they've got a two-game lead on the Bulls and a 2.5-game lead on the Washington Wizards. They're only a half game out of the 7th spot with Indiana. Now, then you have to ask yourself, do you want to get in and play Toronto or Cleveland? I mean, you're 7 and 8 seed anyways, but I don't know. I think you want to play Cleveland because I think Toronto's playing better basketball. But they're going to likely get in as long as they don't have a complete and utter mental lapse down the stretch. I just don't see this team having a problem the rest of the way getting in because they're playing good basketball around. They're sharing the ball well. I don't know. Max?
We got some questions, and Malcolm, I hope Malcolm's still watching, got in the first question of the day.
What's up, Malcolm?
Pistons will make the playoffs. Perfect time for this homestand. Who will step up for this team to take the next step?
Well, it's got to be KCP. He's got to continue to grow and develop. Tobias, I mean, this year I think KCP is a big key. He's the best defender they have, and he's all over the front page of ESPN right now as like the quiet, defender or quiet, MVP of this team. So if he plays well, they have a really good chance. Stanley Johnson's going to take another step in the next couple of years. Andre Drummond, of course, if he's motivated, he's the best defender and shot alterer in the league. He's a double-double machine. He's going to get max contract this offseason. But I think everybody needs to, collectively, they need to step up across the board.
And if you look real quick, if they do match up against the Cavs, they've played them twice already this year, and they've beaten them both times. They're going to match up against them on April 13th here, so that'll be their third game, and I expect the Pistons to win that game as well.
Right.
Honestly, they've got the
Cavs
magical
are
elixir
going
against
to
them.
rest their players because that's what they're going to do. It's the last game of the season.
Jerry said the Pistons are playing better. Are they peaking at the right time? I think they're peaking at the right time. They've also gotten help from their schedule.
Right. Yes. I mean, well, that's what happens when you play so many road games earlier in the season. They're going to benefit from a nice long homestand, of course, but they are playing much better. I mean, 2 weeks ago, you were here, I believe, 2 weeks ago, and I said this team is, they got beat. They got blasted by somebody, and I remember being like.
The Wizards? They get blasted by the Wizards?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was,
It was
On
the
road,
Wizards or something, and I was like, this team is left for dead. Like, they had no, it looked like they had no want to like play. I mean, they lost to the Knicks by 13 points. They lost to San Antonio the night before. Washington 124-81. That was on Monday night.
That game.
So I remember saying, "Oh gosh, like this team doesn't want to get in the playoffs." But you're starting to see them buy into the system a little bit more. Stan Van Gundy's press conferences are a little more telling as far as like, kind of saying, they're coming around, but they're not there yet. They're not there. He's always finding one thing to keep them on their toes. But I look at this team, and I think they're going to peak at the right time and you'll see, this week will be a great barometer for you because you're playing a Thunder team that's, I think, third in the West, if I'm not mistaken, and then the Dallas team, which is fourth, fifth, or sixth in the West. I'm not sure the West Conference standings right off the top of my head. But you're playing two playoff teams from the Western Conference, which is better than the Eastern Conference. If you split, I think it's a victory, and I think that team will show. Now, if you get beat both times poorly, then maybe next week we reevaluate. But I really like the chances of them tonight or tomorrow night or Friday.
And if you look at the way that they won a couple of those games during that win streak, it wasn't just one guy. It was multiple ways.
Right.
You had your bench kicking in.
Right.
You had guys who were a little bit unheralded who all of a sudden rose up. You had your star, Andre Drummond, sitting there getting a last-second tip. You had KCP doing things on the defensive end of the ball that contributed to the offensive side. So it was different ways of getting wins, which bodes well for this team because at some point it's all going to gel. It's all going to click, and they're going to get it. They're going to be like, wow, this is what Stan Van Gundy's been drilling into our heads all season. Because what you're seeing right now is you're seeing a team starting to mature little by little. You're getting this group to do it, this group to do it, this guy to do it, and then what's going to happen over the course of probably the next week or two, it's all just going to kick in and it's going to go into high gear here.
Guys, you can get a ticket for $15 for Friday night against the Dallas Mavericks.
It's a nice Friday night out.
That's a great $2 $30. Take a date. Take a group of buddies who are still under $60.
Cicerelli's across the street.
Get
some
your.
dinner.
I just think that if you want to just go and see what's going on at the Palace, if you haven't been out there for a while, then Jumbotron looks great. The entertainment
I haven't
teams
seen the new.
are
I haven't
fantastic.
seen the new jumbotron.
Oh, dude, you're gonna be blown away. Away.
Someone wants them to stay in Auburn Hills because it's less congestion. I'm moving to Auburn Hills, so I'm all about the Pistons staying in Auburn Hills.
Well, they'll be there for some time. They're not going anywhere anytime soon.
couple-
Any more questions before we wrap it up?
Hallie says, is Andre Drummond worth a max
Yes.
contract?
He's a double-double machine.
Yes.
That's the standard in the NBA. He leads with 61 double-doubles. He's got like 12 more than anybody else. We're talking anybody else in the league. LeBron James doesn't have 61 double-doubles. Kevin Durant doesn't have 61 double-doubles. This guy is a double-double machine. You're absolutely paying him because he's only, 24?
Do you realize all he has to do is get a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball, and you almost have a complete center right there.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's a little bit away from being a monster down low.
Andre Drummond is
And Mickey wants to know, is
22. He's only 22.
Yeah.
3 years into the league.
3 years into the league. This guy is going, by the time he's 25, 3 years from now, he should be, if not talked about in the same caliber as a Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Type,
I don't think
type
Detroit
big man.
fans realize what they
don't realize
have.
what you have because
Yeah.
they've been so bad across the board.
Yes.
But now that they're playing better, he absolutely will get max contract money. He needs to.
And Mickey says, is Andre Drummond maybe more of a problem because he's inconsistent? He needs to become a leader, and he hasn't yet.
That's part of the maturation process. I mean, he's 22. Mickey, were you a leader at 22 years old? Whatever you in your field, whatever you're doing? Most people aren't. Max?
I know I wasn't. I was
You a leader?
a complete mess at
You have to
22.
talk to my boss. Seth, was I a leader last year?
He was only 22 last year. That's what I'm saying. That's how young. That's how young things. Look at that glare. That's great. But like that. I agree with you. He's got to take that step forward. He's got to go out and play every game like it's his last. He's got to start finding that consistency factor, and that's something that you hope he finds in 3 years. Max contracts are scary things with any athlete because you give them all that money and it's like, well, I don't have to. You hope that Andre Drummond cares. And here's the thing, after talking with him, the times I've talked with him, I'm not by any stretch of imagination close to him, but I just see this guy wants to win. I see he wants to be a part of something special. He went to a Final Four. Like, I don't know. I see this guy as a guy who wants to do more than just get paid. Now, and that's why when people are clamoring for what's his face out of Sacramento,
Boogie Cousins.
yeah, DeMarcus Cousins, that guy wants to just get paid. I don't want him anywhere near this team because he's a chemistry nightmare, and Andre gets along
Boogie's
with
crazy.
everybody really
That's
well.
why Boogie's a little bit. He's a little bit off, bro.
A little bit nuts.
Yeah. He's
All right. Anything else? Any straggling questions from the world of?
Honestly, what you're saying about Andre Drummond, after Friday night's game, it got a little bit shaky there for a few minutes, and they were able to come away with what looks like on paper a very big lead. But during that game, while it was going on, they had a monster lead that kind of slipped away. And you listen to Andre Drummond after the game, he was like, "Look, we can't play like that." Like, everybody was congratulating him and saying, "Hey, good win. It was nice that you guys were able to pull this out, this, that, and the other." And he was like, "No, not really, guys. We made a lot of mistakes, and we almost blew this game." So he gets it. He understands it. And you're right. That next step is him becoming a leader. Him and Reggie Jackson both have to take that next step and really grasp a hold of this team and help mold it the way they want it molded. Those are the two guys.
Get it molded.
That's right.
Max, are we done? Are you still
Yes.
done with me?
Yeah.
It's been an hour.
We haven't
Get
met
over
any
it.
fences? Come on, bro.
Nope.
I got hockey semifinals next Sunday. We'll talk about if I'm going on to the championship game or not
Oh, there.
next week. Anyways, thanks for your time today on the Sports Webcast. Each and every week we're here. Tell your friends. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, same WXYZ.com. Enjoy your Monday and the rest of your week. We'll see you later.